We're recording.
Say hello.
Wow, that's nice.
All right.
Isn't that beautiful?
Hey.
Well, fantastic. Can folks see the slides here?
Yes, we can.
I can.
Right.
It's the
The library looks different.
in Deborah Hall.
Love the old barn.
Oh, I thought that was the
Yeah.
library.
I missed that.
No, that's not the library.
No, it's not.
Here you
Your
go.
killer
Okay,
barn.
great.
That's a killer barn, isn't it?
That is the old
That's
barn.
nice.
That
Very
got
nice.
taken down. We need to cry. It got taken down.
I know.
Sad.
Yeah.
By now, it probably would have fallen down. So
I
have a
know.
birdhouse. I have a couple of birdhouses from the wood.
My wood was in
I
my
do too.
wagon and got thrown away. Broke my heart.
Oh,
All right. Well, are we recording, Steve?
Yes, we are.
Well, fantastic. Well, why don't we go ahead and kick things off this evening? Welcome, everyone. My name is Ted Meriam, and I'm the president of the Clayton Historical Society and Museum. And I'd like to welcome you to the annual meeting for 2020. I'll do a quick call out to the picture behind me if you can see it. This is a photo of Oak Street looking towards Mount Diablo as you would head into now the back roads of Dana Hills. And this picture is from 1903. And I particularly like it because my house is actually in this picture in the back right corner here. And it's a great kind of ode to Clayton before development. And you can also see Endeavor Hall over one of my shoulders there as well. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a great program this evening, and we're going to start off with our annual election of directors and officers that we do every year at our annual meeting. I will then provide a brief update around the year in review. Essentially, what has the Historical Society and Museum been up to in 2020, as it's been one heck of a year, I would say. We then have some announcements to make as far as the museum reopening, as well as our new exhibit that will be debuted here in the next couple of weeks. We then have some special recognitions tonight and some important people that we would like to present some awards and proclamations to as we close out the year here. And then we have an opportunity to hear a special video presentation on blacksmithing in Clayton. And we'll be debuting a 3-part series tonight live here on our Zoom meeting for you all to enjoy. We'll then open up the mics at the end of the meeting after the presentation for folks to reflect on anything regarding the Historical Society and or blacksmithing in Clayton. And then we'll close out the evening tonight. So again, thank you so much for joining, and we'll get on now with the program. So our one and only piece of business tonight is our annual election of directors and officers. We made the announcement of our slate in our Autumn Clayton Chronicles newsletter. And what you'll notice here from our executive board, as well as our directors that are up for election this year, is all of these names are currently on the board except for one exception, and that is William Jordan, who's on the bottom of the list here. And for those folks who are involved with the Garden Club and or other organizations in Clayton, you'll notice that Bill Jordan is a common name, and he's very active within the Clayton community, and we're absolutely thrilled that he will be joining us on the board in the role of a maintenance and events chair. And I see Will on the call right now. Do you want to say a quick hello, Will?
Hello, I'm happy to be here. It's the first day, so.
Fantastic. Well, we're happy to have you join us, and thank you so much for your interest in serving on the board with us here at the museum. You bet. All right, so if I can have a motion on the table for one of our board members on approving this slate.
move. Pierce.
Thank you, Julie. And a second?
Second, Karen here.
Thank you, Karen. So are there any discussion amongst the board members and or Historical Society members on the call this evening? All right, with that, I will call the vote. So either please raise your hand to indicate that you approve or say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone decline this slate or any abstentions? All right. Seeing none, this is your 2021 Board of Directors and Officers. So congratulations, everyone, on this. I did want to thank my board for all of your work, especially in 2021, and for your continued commitment to the Museum and Historical Society. And also shout out to Joan Burgum, Joanne Casper, as well as Jan Rubiales for acting as our elections committee for this round. So thank you as well.
Ted, I'm going to assume that that was a vote for not only the board members, but for the executive board.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the folks on the slide and the positions listed. Thanks for the clarifier, Julie. All right, so for a little bit of fun, before we get into some more of our program here, and Steve, did you want to tee this up?
Yeah, we have a bicycle that's been donated as a raffle prize tonight, or silent auction prize, I should say, by Nancy Niemeyer, who donates and propagates a lot of the plants for our native garden. And she had bought this bike, but decided maybe she wasn't quite ready to get back into cycling. What this is, it's a wonderful commuter folding traveling bike. So if you want to go riding in Carmel and sightsee and then fold the bike and up and put it in the trunk out of sight, it's great for that. It's great if you're commuting. And we are going to offer it starting bids tonight at $200. And the way you will bid on it is there's a chat function on your lower bar, kind of in the center of your screen. And what you will do is just go ahead and put in a dollar amount and then maybe type in your last name after that, so we'll know who's bidding. And then we'll have a kind of an intermediate look at this to see where we're at, and then close the meeting to see who the winner will be. Any
All right.
questions? Okay.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Steve. And maybe, Steve, if you want to throw a chat message in the box there, just so people know where to find it. Again, we'll have the bidding throughout the night of this silent auction, and we'll revisit it throughout the evening. But what a great holiday present for yourself or one of your loved ones.
I would suggest that we ask how many people have phones or iPads, because the chat and all the other stuff is not on the bottom. It's in the upper right-hand corner under behind the 3 dots.
Great. Thank you, Steve, for that. He's helping host the meeting tonight. So yeah, if you're on an iPad or a phone, the chat is in the upper section. If you're on a computer, it's in the lower section.
And I'm writing that in the chat section right now.
Linda beat you.
And Linda's in there first. She started the bid.
Independent bid $200 already.
Woohoo! Thank you, Linda. All right. So when I like to host these meetings, I tend to give somewhat of a year in review to reflect on all the good work that the Historical Society and Museum has done in this past particular year. And what a year it has been. And I decided that given everything that's been going on, I would do this in a chronological order and share with you a little bit about what the board has been up to and what the museum has been up to. So if you can recall back now 11 months ago to the January, February timeframe, it was like every other year. It's a happy new year. We're ramping in after the holiday season. We're getting ready for our annual Camellia Tea, which we hosted around Valentine's Day in February. We were finishing up just a minor few remaining museum improvements that we had been doing on the building, improving security and technology and other things like that. And everything was just swimmingly well. And then, as you all recall, COVID-19 had been spiking, and in March in particular, it had gotten particularly out of control in the county. So when the board met on March 9th, we actually met in person then, and we had a conversation about the coronavirus. And I remember the agenda item that I had put on there was something like, are we cool with COVID? Like, what do we want to do with this, right? It was somewhat of a bit of a, novelty, and maybe is the wrong word, but it was like, okay, what's going on with this pandemic here? And what do we want to do? And ultimately, the board decided after that meeting that we were going to close the museum. So on Sunday, March 15th, that was our last day open to the public. We closed the museum. We unfortunately were canceling the field trips that many of you are involved with the elementary school, for example, because they, as a school district, were beginning to reevaluate what was going on. And unfortunately, we decided to look forward to various events that we decided we couldn't host either. Incidentally, 2 days later, Contra Costa County Health also decided that having museums indoors was not a good idea. So through a county order, they actually shuttered all indoor museums as well. So we were a bit of before the curve. We decided on April 14th that the board, especially during this time, wanted to continue to meet. And like many of you in different organizations, you're learning about how to run in a virtual world. So after 46 years of having board meetings, what I can only imagine in person, in someone's home, and or when we had the museum open at our actual facility, we hosted our first virtual board meeting and learned as a leadership team how to navigate this world remotely from our homes. Now, we did have a little bit of fun. So on April 23rd, we did celebrate, a handful of us, and what you're seeing here on the right is a picture of a couple of our board members and other volunteers on the call. And we decided that we were going to celebrate St. George's Day. Why? Because that's a key holiday that is celebrated in our twin city of Bugsworth, England, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And as we kind of settled in the pandemic in May, not much was going on one way or the other then. And so we decided that we were going to keep the museum closed, no events were going on, and we decided that we were going to cancel our board meeting as well and essentially settle into this new life as we knew it. And then June arrived. And as you recall, as a nation in particular during this time, we were going through a little bit of civil unrest with regards to racial tensions that were beginning to spill over within our community. And the photos that you're seeing here are actually taken on June 1st. And these are members of our board and volunteers in our community that decided, as many businesses did in downtown Clayton, that we were going to be boarding up our facility, because we were under the impression that protesters were going to be coming into downtown Clayton, as they have a civil right to do, but we were concerned about potential, vandalism that we had seen in, unfortunately, other communities in the area. Yet we had a shiny light, something to look forward to later in June. And what you're looking at here are pictures of our annual gardens tour. So we were essentially able to, thread the needle, if you will, as far as what was going on as far as the health regulations, and outdoor events in June were actually permitted within the county. So on June 19th or 20th, we hosted our annual gardens tour with special COVID-19 precautions. And what you can see there is a couple of our wonderful homes that we had debuted in the local community. And this was such a great opportunity to get out of our houses, to enjoy some fresh air and the beautiful yards of our wonderful volunteers. So that was such a great event to do. And then on June 30th, as many of you will recall, there was a fire up on School Hill that actually was very close to some of our members on this call tonight, and casted quite a bit of smoke in the community, and obviously initiated a first alarm response for our fire department and police officers. And I remember as I was writing the note to my board about the fact that there was a fire, of all things, in downtown Clayton, it was like, you got to be kidding me. It was like pandemic followed by civil unrest, followed now by a natural disaster, if you will. And I was like, what in the world are we going to see next in 2020? So that was the first 6 months of the year, and what a hell of a year it was. So now as we look forward, I'm pleased to announce that we will be reopening the museum later this month. So on November 22nd at 2 p.m., we will be opening our museum at a 25% capacity as we're required to do by the health board. And I also want the folks to know that we have also dressed up the museum garden. So in particular, if you've not been back into the exhibit area by the jail and some of our farm equipment, thanks to Steve Lane and some of our other volunteers, there's pumpkins out there and a scarecrow and some other festive autumn things to take a peek at as well if you happen to be at the facility at any time. And we also welcome you to join us on November 22nd at 2 p.m. And then here we are today, where we are hosting our annual meeting, and it's certainly good to see you as well. So anyone want to do any other thoughts or reflections on the year that we've been through, or any kind of memories over the past 10 months? All right. Well, seeing none, we'll move on to our next topic, and I am pleased to announce our next exhibit, which literally has been a year in the making, and that is Bucksworth in the High Peak in delightful Derbyshire County. And this museum exhibit has been curated by our curator, Renee Wing. And we've been lucky to have Renee as our assistant curator and now curator for as long as I can remember. And I've been on the board for now over 10 years. And she has installed numerous exhibits over the years, has grown and maintained our ongoing collections, and is now in the process of spreading her vast knowledge as she seeks to retire at the end of this year. While this will be her last exhibit, she tells us, she wishes to remain involved in the museum, which we certainly welcome. And we'll continue to honor her at a future time. And I hope this is ideally in person and with food, and of course, with what she loves most, which is great music. So be on the lookout for an opportunity to celebrate with Renee as she moves into retirement here in the new year. So what is this exhibit about? And I want to make sure Renee is not snuck on the call, has she? She told me she was not going to be here. I don't see her. Okay, great. All right. So what is this exhibit about? The new exhibit at our Historic House Museum celebrates the village and the county where our town founder, Joel Clayton, was born and raised. And through photos and text, museum visitors will enjoy their introduction of Derbyshire County, England, which is an ancient and more recent history, its geography, its people, its industries, and its attractions. And specifically featured on the north wall of the exhibit, when you walk into the room, are 12 photos that have been graciously donated by Bucksworth's own favorite art photographer, Mark Lomas. And they sent these photographs to us in the mail as a gift, and we're very appreciative to the Association of Bucksworth and the Clayton, as they call them, ABCers. And those are our friends over in England as part of our twinning sister cities. So the questions of this exhibit that will be answered are such as, where in the world is Bucksworth? What is Brierley Green Farm? What were Bucksworth's early industries? Why is the town name spelled both Bucksworth with an X and Bugsworth, like the bug that flies around with a G? What is the Peak Forest Canal? Why are Bucksworth and Clayton twinned? Why did the Romans find the region so attractive? How did Derbyshire lead the way in the Industrial Revolution? What was the cotton famine? What is a well dressing? What is the famous Bakewell pudding? What exquisite and rare mineral is found only in the caves in Derbyshire? And what the heck is potholing? So if you're interested in answers to any of these questions, this exhibit tells them all and more. So the photos, facts, and attractions presented to the viewer will whet your appetite for a deeper investigation of Clayton, California's motherland. They may prompt a hop around the pond for those adventuresome souls seeking to experience it all in person. So if anyone is to go to Bucksworth, please do send us a postcard. I know that I'm personally itching to get the heck out of town, especially right now, and actually have talked to a few folks that may be offering a tour as a group in 2021 or 2022. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. All right, so I did want to thank Renee Wing for an incredible exhibit. I've had the pleasure of watching her work as I pop in and out of the museum over the past several months, and you are in for a treat. So if you want to be one of the first folks to see this exhibit, please do show up again on Sunday, the 22nd of November. All right, checking in for the auction. Steve, how's it going? Anyone need some help here? We do still have, again, the bike open.
Well, we're still holding steady with one bid from for $200 from Linda Pinder. So we're hoping more people will participate. Again, this is a wonderful compact folding bike, great for traveling and commuting.
And
Fantastic.
we have a few new people who have joined us. So Steve, just go over what we're doing again, just so that those who joined us will know what you're talking about.
Okay. We're having a silent auction on a folding bicycle, commuter type travel bicycle. It's a 7-speed bicycle with the good Shimano components. And we've got a starting bid now at $200. And the way you can bid on this is if you're on a computer, you use the chat function, chat button on the lower bar of your computer screen. Or if you happen to be on an iPhone or iPad, I believe there's the 3 dots in the upper corner that you press to get the chat function to work. And then you can bid on it that way. I just got a bid by Jim 7 for $210. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much. And do we have an increment that we need to follow? Is it 10 bucks?
Not necessarily.
Okay. All right, so that again will be open all evening long, and we'll do one more announcement.
Great. Keep bidding, folks. Thank you.
All right, we're now moving to our special recognition time of the evening, and this is one of the most pleasurable aspects for me personally of the night, because it's an opportunity for us to recognize 3 key folks of the Clayton community who have had a profound impact on who we are, not only as a community and a city, but also more importantly for this audience as a historical society and museum. So with that, I'm going to be turning it over now to Julie Pierce. Julie is our secretary of the board for the Clayton Historical Society, but she also comes to us tonight in the capacity as the mayor of Clayton, and she'll be presenting our first 2 awards this evening.
I will. And Joanne, would you give our first mayor a phone call? I sent him a text, but he's not on here yet.
Oh, I'm not sure whether he was going to be on. I never talked to him about it. I'm sorry.
Well, I just texted him and I sent him the Zoom link. So, but he needs a
Okay.
phone call. So mute yourself and then call him or something.
Do I get off? Will I lose watching
yeah.
this? If I
Okay,
get on the-
Steve, would you call him? Steve Pierce, would you call him, please?
Yes.
And tell him to check his email and enter into the Zoom meeting.
Julie, would you like me to pass it to Steve for him to present?
I think that would be,
Great.
yes. And Steve, you can introduce the one.
Great. I'll click over to Steve's award now, and then we'll work backwards to the other 2.
Right.
Steve, is that okay? Are you ready to come off mic and present the award?
Steve Lane.
Which award are we speaking of?
For Mr. Richmond?
Okay. It would be nice if we could advance the slides, maybe a couple.
Yep. There you go.
Because first, I would like to start with this with a tribute to our dear friend. As many of you probably know and have read by now, either in the Concord Clayton Pioneer or in our Chronicles newsletter or your other association's newsletter you might be involved with, that this past August 22nd, we lost one of the most fun, most outgoing, and most volunteering Clayton citizens I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. I'm sure he and our city's founder, Joel Clayton, would have been good friends because they both did so much for the promotion of and enjoyment of the Clayton community and its citizens. I'm speaking of Rory Richmond, and he and I worked side by side on many work days over the years within the museum educational garden and on the historic Clayton Museum building, which is one half of Joel Clayton's home. We were either decorating for the holidays or making repairs. And during our good times together, Rory and I talked about food, one of his favorite subjects, gardening, probably one of his second favorite subjects, as well as the outdoors. Some of you may or may not know that Rory earned a degree in geology at UC Riverside, but preferred his long career in the produce industry. Given this, he was well known for promoting almost equally both kale, yes, that leafy green we all love, and the annual Clayton Barbecue Cook-Off, which was his true pride and joy. Rory went above and beyond for any individual, any organization, anytime he was available. Thanks for all you did here on Earth, my friend. Rory, we'll be looking up to you for inspiration. Thank you. And it is my honor tonight on behalf of the Clayton Historical Society Board. We are very proud to honor Rory Richmond as this year's Special Recognition Award recipient, 2020.
Move it up. Move it
Great.
up so we can see his name.
You can see it.
Can see it.
You
Oh,
might
I
have to zoom
can't.
out,
Oh,
Joanne.
okay. I can't see it. Okay.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is the official special recognition award plaque that we have hanging in the museum. And you'll see here that Rory is honored this year, 2020, as part of the Clayton Historical Society Special Recognition Award for everything that he did on behalf of the board and for the city of Clayton.
Hey, Ted,
So-
maybe we should read that this is bestowed annually to individuals or groups whose support, contributions, and exemplary service have been vital to the mission of the organization.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Can
Well,
we
thank
call
you,
it the
Steve.
Rory Richmond Award going forward?
It's the Rory Richmond Award for now, indeed.
We are looking at other ways to memorialize Rory within the community, but I just can't speak of them at this time because they're in progress.
And Ted, if I may, can I take off my hat as secretary for a minute and put on my hat as the mayor of Clayton? And I'd like to present this proclamation to Rory. And let me read to you what it says. It says, in honor of Rory Richmond, whereas Rory Richmond may not have been someone that many Claytonians have heard of, but he was the very best of Clayton. And whereas Rory and Becky haven't lived in Clayton as long as some of the old timers, what they lacked in duration, Rory made up for in energy for the community. Rory jumped into Clayton with both feet. He joined the CBCA, volunteering on committee after committee, the Clayton Valley Garden Club and the Historical Society, and got to know everyone he could. And whereas when the time was right, Rory took on the challenge of expanding the Clayton Barbecue Cook-Off from a small annual event in the parking lot of the Clayton Club into a full-blown CBCA-sponsored citywide festival. The barbecue became Rory's passion. So much so that he spent his own time and money to attend various Kansas City Barbecue Society events around the country and got to know the KCBS management. And whereas the Clayton Barbecue Cook-Off became an official KCBS sanctioned event, drawing thousands of barbecue lovers from all over Northern California, pitmasters from all over the West Coast traveled to Clayton to try to impress the KCBS judges for bragging rights, prizes, and valuable championship points. And whereas Rory got the community involved by holding annual KCBS judging classes, where several hundred Claytonians have become officially sanctioned KCBS judges, and whereas Rory Richmond passed away suddenly on August 22nd, 2020, just before the last weekend in August that would have been the 11th annual barbecue cook-off in Clayton. And whereas Rory earned a degree in geology at UC Riverside, but preferred his long career in the produce industry. Given this, he was well known for promoting almost equally kale, yes, that leafy green, and the annual Clayton Barbecue Cook-Off, his true pride and joy. And whereas Rory loved gardening and growing succulents, he was an avid volunteer for the Clayton Valley Garden Club, propagating plants, working in the hoop house, helping with plant sales, and doing whatever needed doing. And whereas Rory also had a passion for history, he became a mainstay member of the Clayton Historical Society, helping with the never-ending maintenance of the Historic Museum, or working in the garden, or volunteering for fundraisers. Rory was always there. And whereas Rory Richmond was honored with the Clayton Historical Society's Special Recognition Award at their annual meeting on November 12th, 2020, and whereas Rory was about so much more than just barbecue, art and wine, or Oktoberfest, Garden Club, or Clayton Historical Society, or any other event that needed a volunteer. He was a kind, gentle, giving soul that believed in the good in all people. He was a true friend that loved Clayton and has left us much too soon. Now, therefore, I, Julie Pierce, Mayor of the City of Clayton, on behalf of the council and our entire community, extend our heartfelt thanks to Rory Richmond and our sincerest condolences to Rory's partner, Becky, and his family. Rory truly represented the absolute best in Clayton. You can see that signed here on the bottom. So this will be presented again at the city council meeting on Tuesday, and then I will get it to you, Becky. So I've cried many times today reading that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Steve. Maybe we'll just have a brief moment of silence to think about Rory for those who have known him and for those who have just learned about what a great person he is. All right, thank you both again for that. And we certainly look forward to hearing the proclamation again at City Council next week. All right, there are two more folks we would like to recognize this evening. And Mayor, if you will also keep your hat on again for these next two recipients. I believe we have two more proclamations on behalf of the city and museum. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. So let me read the first one, and I'll put this one up for you to see. And this one is a proclamation honoring Richard Dick Ellis. And whereas Dick Ellis has always been an ardent believer in the role of photography as an educational tool, and a way to bridge the past with the present. Some years ago, he led a gaggle of elementary school children through downtown Clayton, telling them about its history and holding up giant photographs of buildings as they appeared in the past. And whereas Dick was born in San Francisco, attended St. Mary's College on a full football scholarship, earned a master's degree in industrial and technical arts, and was a Marine from 1951 to 1954. And whereas Dick, his wife Mary Lou, and their 5 children moved to Clayton in 1961, when a friend asked Dick to join him as a teacher at the newly built Clayton Valley High School, where he planned the curriculum for the Department of Graphic Arts, Photography, and Mechanical Drawing, and taught for almost 30 years. During that time, he also found time to work for the county and the state of California, coordinating new educational frameworks. And whereas the booklet, Clayton Small But Proud, was the product of a Clayton Valley High School summer project spearheaded by Dick that involved 100 students and 5 teachers from different departments within the high school, providing a written history illustrated with photographs that was used as a device to garner support for Clayton's 1964 incorporation, its bid to be its own city and not just another part of Concord. And whereas $4 from each booklet sold was put into a fund to establish an identity dedicated to preserving the city's history, and in the 1970s, Dick and other city residents drew up a constitution to create the Clayton Historical Society, where Dick served for over 20 years on the board and several terms as president, at the same time assembling numerous binders with historical pictures and information. And whereas Dick was asked by a fellow CVHS teacher to join a group traveling to China as their photographer, and it was this trip that inspired he and Mary Lou to keep traveling in subsequent years. And whereas they were the Clayton residents who went to Bucksworth, England, spelled with an X here, and fostered friendships that led to our city's twinning with the little town where Joel Clayton was born. They visited Bucksworth several times over the years to collect information about the Clayton family, and this research, along with Dick's photos, fills the numerous binders that are available for anyone to peruse today. Now, therefore, I, Julie Pierce, Mayor, on behalf of the City Council and the Clayton community, do hereby thank Richard Dick Ellis for being an inspiring educator, a dedicated preserver of history, an enthusiastic supporter of the town of Clayton, and congratulate him on receiving the title President Emeritus and being bestowed with the Clayton Historical Society Stewardship Award at their annual meeting on November 12th, 2020. Congratulations, Dick.
Well, thank you very much. Quite an honor. But one thing I want to be impressed with what's the emeritus? I always thought it was pronounced emertes, but you learn something new all the time.
All right.
Well, welcome to the club, Dick.
Thank you.
Regardless of what we call it. But yes. And I certainly, want to thank Dick personally. Dick is one of the first and key board members when I joined the museum and eventually took over as president, who helped mentor and coach me in this organization about 12 or so years ago. So thank you personally, Dick, for all your service, not only for me, but for the museum.
I enjoyed doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dick, for hooking him in.
Yep, got him hooked.
So I have one more proclamation. You know what they say about somebody, the president or somebody when they retire, going out as mayor, I've got a passel of proclamations on my desk. They're not pardons, they're just proclamations. So I have one more. And this one is a little bit premature in a way, because I would love to have done it next March, but I won't be mayor anymore. So I'm doing it now. And the Historic Society is helping me with it. So this one is a proclamation honoring Bob Hoyer. And it says, Whereas Robert, Bob to us, Hoyer, was Clayton's first mayor, who will celebrate his 100th birthday in March of 2021 and is still an active member of our wonderful community. And whereas Bay Area native of Oakland, Bob went to the University of Nevada in Reno, where he earned a degree as a mining engineer. And after serving in the US Army during World War II in the Philippines, Bob returned to Reno to finish his degree, where he met his wife, Eldora, after she returned home from serving as a Navy flight instructor stationed in Florida during the war. And whereas Bob had a varied and interesting career, worked for the Natomas Mining Company in Battle Mountain, Nevada, and as mining declined after the war, Bob and Eldora moved back to the Bay Area, where Bob worked for Dow Chemical in Pittsburgh. After his father's death, Bob returned to the family business in Oakland. He later worked for the East Bay Regional Park District as a construction inspector. And whereas 1956, the Hoyers purchased a lovely lot on the hill, built their home in Clayton, and became leaders in the drive to incorporate Clayton as a city. Bob became Clayton's first mayor in March of 1964, serving on the council until 1980. Bob was mayor from 64 through 67 and again in 1970 and 71. And whereas that early city council set the recreational landscape for the Clayton we enjoy today when they hired David Whittick, a professional land planner, to lay out a citywide trail system along the creeks before the houses were built, creating our highly regarded trail system. Whittick also created the current layout for Dana Hills, preserving the greenbelt, which was not part of the original plans for the project. And whereas Bob and Eldora were part of the committee to create the Clayton Historical Society, chartered in 1976, after securing a $26,000 grant from the county, in 1976, the historic Joel Clayton and Pape houses were moved from their respective locations on the Keller Ranch and Oak Street and joined as one building on the current location on Main Street, creating the current museum. Bob served as president of the Clayton Historical Society board and with Dick Ellis on the Historic Marker Committee, raising money to place the many monuments to Clayton history around our town. And whereas always active, Bob has continued to serve on Clayton committees, including the Grove Park Blue Ribbon Task Force to design the park, the Keller Ranch Master Plan Committee, and many others. Bob and his family donated the flagpoles at City Hall, the Grove Park, and at the museum. Now, therefore, I, Julie Pierce, Mayor, on behalf of the City Council and the Clayton community, do hereby thank Robert Bob Hoyer for being an inspiring leader and keeper of history, for being active in making Clayton the wonderful community we enjoy today, and congratulate him on receiving the title President Emeritus and being bestowed with the Clayton Historical Society Stewardship Award at the CHS annual meeting on November 12th, 2020. Congratulations, my favorite mayor. Congratulations, Bob. You're muted if you want to answer. Got to unmute your microphone. Are you on your, if you're on your computer, it's in the lower left, Bob.
Yeah, now, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Julie. Wonderful of you to do that.
Well, you mean so much to the museum and to the community, you both do. And so it's just such an honor to be able to honor both of you wonderful guys who have helped to get us where we are today. And I know Ted has more to say, but you know, it's from the entire board as well as from the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. Thank you again, Mayor Pierce, and congratulations, Bob. You know, you cannot separate Clayton or the history of Clayton, certainly from you. Your name, as well as your wife's name and Dick's name for that matter, are all over this city. And I know that as I research various topics of our community and try to educate myself on the past, I'm always coming across the Hoyers and the Ellises. So I consider you both our founding fathers in that regard, and we certainly love you, appreciate you, are thrilled that you're able to join us tonight virtually. I wish we could celebrate in Endeavor Hall together, but perhaps in the near future we will. So thank you.
I want to thank you. Thank you very much. One keynote, you guys made it easy to do things. I flunked history at St. Mary's. Yeah.
Well, you're making up for it now, my friend.
On history at St. Mary's.
And what I'm curious about how Bob would pronounce the new title, President what? How do you pronounce that? We'll have to have Dick and Bob do a duo here of emeritus versus
emeritus. Yeah.
Emeritus.
Yeah, President of America.
There we go. All right.
President.
So Bob said emeritus, Dick. So we're gonna have to check that one out.
We stay with Bob.
Sounds great.
Emeritus.
Would the rest of the board, again, this is on behalf of the board, like to say anything to Dick or to Bob this evening?
Thank you very much.
Congratulations to Bob and to Dick.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Joan, as well.
Yeah, you have been good friends for me for a long time, and I appreciate both of you.
Yeah.
Top it off with a glass of wine.
Yep.
Right.
That's
Remember,
awesome.
Dick, we used to share a glass, remember?
Yep. Oh, yes.
Here's to the days when we can go back to having those in person.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Bob and Dick. I appreciate both of you so very much.
That was
This is
hard.
Karen, thank you, Karen.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, we'll continue the celebration of these three gentlemen in spirit this evening, but now we're going to transition over to our video premiere tonight. And that is the debut of 3 video snippets on blacksmithing in Clayton. And they feature actually one of our very own local blacksmiths, a gentleman named Brian Connery. And with that, I'd like to hand it over. Oh, Brian, you're on the call. Hey, man, thanks so much. There he is.
Yay, Brian.
And with that, I'll hand it over back to Steve Lane, who will introduce these videos, as well as Brian as well.
Oh, I too want to thank both Bob Hoyer and Dick Ellis, who in that photograph you had, they were sitting in the museum garden plaza. And a large part of the design research for that came from the binders within the museum that Dick Ellis put together. So I'm going to ask a few questions here before I start the presentation, and we'll get into it. This goes out to all of you. Have you ever wondered why there are horseshoes and blacksmith tools embedded in the concrete walks leading to the wagon wheel plaza of the Clayton Museum Educational Garden? Anybody?
No, because you told me why.
There was a blacksmith. Yes, there was a blacksmith shop there.
Very good, Joanne. Have you ever stopped to read the garden site history plaque, the second paragraph specifically, in which it reads, in 1864, the town's first blacksmith shop was built here?
Yes.
Good, I'm glad someone read it.
Oh, I read it. I read it. I forgot it already.
But really, who were these Clayton-based blacksmith and shop owners? And where were the 2 blacksmith shops located in historic downtown Clayton? What did blacksmiths do? What principles and tools did they use and still use today? And what important everyday items did they make? And finally, how did they make these items with mere fire, steel, tools, and scientific knowledge? Tonight, we aim to answer the above questions with images and narratives, and close with a smithing demonstration, leaving you with just one remaining question. In our future presentation, Blacksmithing in Clayton, parts 1, 2, and 3. These videos were produced by Clayton resident AJ Shapiro, whom we owe great thanks to for his time and expertise in putting them together. Quickly, video number 1 includes a compilation of Debbie Eistetter's article entitled "Once the Blacksmith Was a Hot Property." It was featured in the May 2018 Clayton and Concord Pioneer with historic images of blacksmithing and related subjects from the Clayton Historical Society's archives. And has some modern day photo comparisons similar to what Dick Ellis did many, many years ago. Video number 2 provides a tour of the Clayton Blacksmith exhibit in the Historic Clayton Jail. And some of you probably don't even know that we have a blacksmith exhibit in the Clayton Jail, which includes tools from the Trait Blacksmith Shop, one of the blacksmiths in Clayton. Video 3 provides a discussion of blacksmith tools past and present with Clayton Museum docent Brian Connery, and closes with a live demonstration by Brian near the site of Clayton's first blacksmith shop on the Clayton Museum grounds. So without further ado, let's roll the video and enjoy Blacksmithing in Clayton, parts 1, 2, and 3.
The face, the horn, the pritchel and hardy holes, names of the different areas of a blacksmith's anvil on which he was able to flatten, twist, curve, and pierce hot metal. A blacksmith at work in the 18th and early 19th centuries was a multi-talented artisan who was able to make or repair numerous indispensable items, be they simple like nails or hinges, or more complex items like parts for weapons and tools, or parts for wagons and plows. In the past, this occupation was essential and highly esteemed in every community. His workshop was known as the smithy and was the old-time version of our present-day hardware store. It was often a popular gathering place for visitors and neighbors to converse and exchange news and ideas. The typical smithy had a high peak roof and double doors on 2 or 3 of its walls to allow for proper ventilation and space for wagons and horses. To prevent fires, the floor was compacted dirt. Crushed rock surrounded the blazing red-hot forge. An ideal structure would have several windows for optimal lighting. Clayton's first blacksmith was a Welsh immigrant named Shadrach Jones. He worked in Sacramento before he came to town, and in 1864 he set up shop where today the Clayton Museum Garden is located, on Block 1, Lot 5 of Joel Clayton's 1857 town map. In the present day, this site remains Lot 1, Block 5 in the county's assessor's parcel map and on the following location map, and has become an educational oasis including native trees and plants and agricultural and local history information. The museum garden was originally designed in 2000 by Greta Ringerberg and again in 2010 by Anna Wendorf and most recently by Steve Lane in 2012 to the present. Hardscape, drip irrigation, and garden structures were completed in 2018 by Donisi Landcamp Construction. This beautiful rendering of the proposed museum garden installation was donated by local artist illustrator Charles Endom for project community fundraising purposes. In the present-day museum garden, you will notice items made and used by blacksmiths embedded in the concrete. The wagon wheel pattern of the bricks is a nod to our horse-drawn past. Shadrach Jones left town in 1877 to work in Berkeley, and records show John and George Condy, father and son blacksmiths, plying their trade in the same location until the 1890s. At this time, the coal mines over the hill in Nortonville and Summersville were in full swing, and business was good for Clayton's merchants, saloon keepers, and hoteliers. Enough business to support more than one blacksmith. Around the same time the Condys were in business, Matthew Doc Nottingham built his smithy on the corner of Main and Oak Streets, currently the location of our bocce ball courts. Blacksmiths not only made horseshoes, but also acted as farriers, putting the shoes on the horses. Conveniently next door, and east of Nottingham's blacksmith shop, stood James Curry's livery and stable on Main Street. Doc Nottingham was a very busy man running a thriving business, but made time to play the bass drum in the Clayton Cornet Band. In 1891, Nottingham sold the business to Charles Harry Trait and family. Harry Trait was a German immigrant who learned the trade as a young man working as a ranch on Willow Pass Road in the northern part of the greater Clayton Valley, today's Concord. Similar to James Curry, Trait and his wife, Emma Jane Robertson Trait, lived around the corner from his business in a small home on the southwest corner of Center Street and Diablo Street. Harry trained his oldest son, Rudolph Dutch Trait, to be a blacksmith, even though the boy had his heart set on becoming a plumber. In an 1968 interview, Dutch said that when his father lost an eye, there was no other option but for him to run the business, and it was deeded to him in 1914. Dutch's customers were farmers, cowboys, and stockmen whose working horses and driving horses he would shoe. Occasionally, he would be called upon to craft or repair items, but factory-made tools and the advent of the automobile signaled the end of his noble occupation. Traditional blacksmith work was losing ground, and Dutch had to work additional jobs to support his family. In 1920, he was a blacksmith in a shipyard. In the census of 1930, he was listed as a farmer in a vineyard, and in 1942, he was working at the Cowell Portland Cement Company, situated just a couple of miles from Clayton. Eventually, Dutch's blacksmith shop building was moved to Center Street, east of the Endeavor Hall, and was used as his garage. In spite of the hard physical labor, Dutch Trait was proud to have been a blacksmith and laughed when he remembered a lady coming to his shop wanting to have her sewing needles straightened. She must have been an old-timer whose experience had taught her to have faith in a blacksmith's ability to solve any problem, large or small. Sadly, today there's virtually no trace of the buildings related to the history of blacksmithing in Clayton. What does remain is a tribute to the Trait blacksmith shop in a play structure panel on the Grove Park on the south Center Street side. And also remaining are Trait's blacksmith tools on display at the Clayton Museum's blacksmith exhibit, located in the former Clayton Jail building behind the museum building. We hope you enjoyed part 1, the brief history segment of our Blacksmithing in Clayton video series. Be sure to watch part 2, the Clayton Museum blacksmith exhibit, where we get into more detail of the tools and methods used by blacksmiths, presented by Clayton Museum docent and blacksmith Brian Connery. And if you'd like to see Brian create a blacksmith work in the Museum Garden Plaza, side of the first blacksmith shop in Clayton, please see our Blacksmithing in Clayton video, part 3, A Blacksmith in the Garden. Also, to learn more about Clayton history, please visit our museum at 6101 Main Street, Clayton, and our website, claytonhistory.org, where you can also purchase the Clayton Images of America book filled with photos and captions of Clayton's rich history. Welcome. Come inside. Let's take a look at the Clayton Museum's blacksmith exhibit. Inside, you'll see an assortment of various tools and implements used by blacksmiths in the olden days to make all kinds of objects of usefulness and utility, using various sizes of tongs for large pieces of hot iron, large and small, even the anvils, large and small. The smallest ones of this size are useful, all the way up to 300 pounds. The sound of the ringing hammer was very common in those days. Using a blacksmith's crank forge, you were able to push air underneath the bellows through a pipe into the tuyere, going into the forge itself, either a large crank or a small crank, into the forge body, using coal, such as found in Nortonville and Summersville nearby. We're able to fire up a small forge of this size. Oh, that's hot. And be able to heat up iron and steel to be able to work it when it's malleable. If you need to drill a hole, you just use this large drill press weighing 100 pounds, belt driven, to be able to drill holes. Going to the glass case, you see all the various kinds of anvil tools and blacksmith tools, which are essentially dies that create impressions in the hot iron, all the way from cutters to shapers, using those tongs that we've seen before to be able to hold the hot iron and not have to use anything else other than steel to hold steel. This is, on a small scale, what is very useful back in the day. Turning now to a demonstration of how these tools work. I intend to show all the various hammers which are used to create even things such as axe heads. Both hammers large and small. Files that were used to file away steel and to sharpen axe heads if necessary. Or to sharpen, or to file, or to shape nowadays using vice grips in place of tongs for small objects. A smith is able to do heat treating and not have to get close to the hot iron and get a chance getting burnt. Nope, still hot. So those vice grips, modern day versions of blacksmith tongs, are very useful. We have pliers, also another modern day version of blacksmith tongs, to be able to hold small pieces and quench them in water. Very useful and also very utilitarian. Other kinds of files are round files, square files to make square channels in either wood or in iron or in steel. There must be 100 different shapes of files, different sizes, different grips. Turning now to a propane torch, we're going to do a little heat treating with the question at the end of the demonstration of why. That would be the question, is why. So we put on these heavy gloves to be able to avoid getting burnt. Getting burnt is not a fun experience. It happens very easily in this kind of craft, in this kind of trade. To not be burnt, to have one's eyesight, have one's hearing, is an important side result of being careful. Taking a piece of soft iron and the forge in the form of a small propane torch, one's able to bend a small rod of iron. This is just mild steel, and it was used structurally, virtually every building that was ever built back in the day, and still is. And by heating the iron, we're able to slowly bend it apart. Ordinarily, it's hard to bend a piece even as small as this by hand as easily as this, but it takes high heat to be able to soften up the metal and be able to straighten it out or even forge weld it to another piece if necessary. So using the strength of a strong blacksmith, one's able to bend a piece of butter soft iron, quench it in water, keeping one's head away from the propane torch, Now try and bend it again. It's not possible. So with a file, this is where it gets interesting. File's characteristics are that when it starts off, it is very tough and brittle. One can't bend it without breaking it. But with the advent of a small propane torch, slowly heating up the middle of that file, you'll be able to see that it's easy to turn it into buttery soft metal. After waiting a minute or two, wait for the right color to come onto the metal. Using your pair of pliers and keeping your hands safe from the flame, you're able to slowly bend it in half. These kinds of properties of metal are important for a smith to know, is how hot to make something before it gets too hot, and then to suddenly, at least in the example used of carbon steel, one quenches it very quickly in water, and then you're able to see what happens next, which is a very important thing to know. Quench it in water. You then take it up, take your pliers, turn off your little portable forge here, and try to bend it without breaking it. Oh, it breaks. The question is why? Well, that's to find out.
All right, what a phenomenal presentation on blacksmithing in Clayton. Thank you so much, Brian. Since this is our membership meeting, I would open up the mics now. If you have any questions to Brian, he is a professional blacksmither. Is that the right term, blacksmither?
Blacksmith.
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 Professional blacksmith, excuse me. And also, if anyone has any stories they want to share about blacksmithing in Clayton, we can certainly do that too. Julie,
Well,
you have a hand up.
I actually have a question. Brian left us with the question at the end. Why did it break?
Well, it broke. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, there he is.
It broke because essentially you returned it to its original state of being brittle hard. And so it's like bending a piece of glass. So you know that it's going to be that hard, which is why files are useful, because they abrade softer materials, but you can't abuse them. If you do, you'll break them. So I was just showing it how easy it was to break them.
Thank you.
Does that answer it?
Very
Already-
interesting. Yeah. Very good.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
this is Steve Lane. Is
Yes,
part of
Steve.
the reason that it also broke is because it was heated beyond its structural properties and then quenched too soon? You changed the chemistry of the steel?
Well, you know that you do when you do that, especially in water. Water is it makes it very stressed out, very brittle. If you quench it in oil, it makes it more malleable to a degree. But in water, it shocks it to become glass hard. And that's one thing as a smith, you don't do. If you're going to use a tool that's made out of that, is how to heat treat it properly. So all I was doing was abusing it to make a point.
Oh, interesting. And I didn't know that you could quench heated pieces of metal in oil.
Yes, the thinner it is, oil is necessary. The thicker it is, water is necessary. So you have to know, again, the question is why? You have to know why. And that takes a little experience.
Why wouldn't the oil catch on fire?
It does. So you have to be aware of that.
And stand back.
And stand back, wear gloves, and expect to lose a little bit of hair in your arms. But if you're aware of it, you're okay.
Who's that? Linda. Oh, that's right.
So Brian, we we had a bit of a conversation when we were shooting this film about the notion that some people may think, that blacksmithing is a declining profession, is dead, whatever you want to articulate it as.
No.
So can you tell me the type of work that a modern blacksmith does, just to give a bit of color to what the trade looks like in 2020?
Actually, there's a TV show called Forged in Fire, and it's kind of like a dramatization of what modern day smiths can do under stress of time and material to create something of beauty, something artistic, and also something utilitarian. So in general, though, I'd say the blacksmith is more like a customizer. He customizes something that's is too small for a automated system, automated industry to adjust a little bit. He'll adjust it a little bit. He won't create it. It's too much. And also, if you're just an artist, you can use your imagination, and hopefully your customer will be happy with the result. So you're sort of in between necessary and unnecessary. So I wouldn't call myself professional. I'm gonna call myself as a hobbyist blacksmith. There's a difference. No money involved.
Got it. So you do this mainly, would you say, for fun?
Just for fun, purely, and to learn, to experiment, to expand my imagination, say. So using traditional techniques, though, you can come up with some interesting things that people have never seen before. And that's part of it. That's part of the education, is you're educating your audience and the folks who are willing to listen.
That's great. Other
Very
questions?
interesting.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a blacksmith, the horseshoer, that learned to shoe in the cavalry, and for 40 years that was very creative, along with shoeing all the horses. So I learned a little bit. I learned a lot more tonight. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, here's a question for everybody. What's the difference between a farrier and a blacksmith?
Horseshoes.
Okay.
The farrier puts horseshoes on the horse, and the blacksmith creates the horseshoes.
Used to.
Used
Now
to,
it doesn't.
yeah.
Machines do it in 2 seconds.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
They buy them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they may, as I mentioned before, they may adjust them a little bit. That's easy. But to create it, that's a pain in the keister.
Yeah, the blacksmith created everything that
Yeah.
was metal,
And wood.
blocks and
And
all
wood.
kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
and horseshoes. Yeah, and wood.
Yeah. So if
Yeah,
you can,
different than just a farrier.
yeah, if you can combine wood and metal, you're an all-rounder. You can do it both.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
very interesting.
Well, the old blacksmith used to do all the branding irons, am I right?
Yes.
In fact, about 25 years
Yes.
ago, I think we had an exhibit at the museum, samples of many of the branding irons that still exist in the ranches out in Clayton, dating back to some of the pioneering families also.
I'm also the blacksmith up there at the Red Barn Museum up in San Andreas in Calaveras County. And the museum has a display of 100 different branding irons, some of which are still used.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Really.
So, and one of the questions probably people should ask is, how often have I been burnt? Over 50 years. One small dot the size of a lentil on my hand. That's it. That's all I want. No more than that.
Did that hurt enough for
That
you?
was enough. So thank you for the opportunity to explain the craft. I appreciate it, folks, very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Brian.
you.
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I used to work at One Market Plaza for Southern Pacific Railroad, and we'd walk over the noon hour, and not far from there on that street south of Mission was a blacksmith shop. And I went in there once, and it was fascinating. I'm wondering if that's still operative. Would you happen to know?
Where is it now?
I can answer the question. It is not. The building is deemed a historic building. The one in San Francisco, it's just off of Folsom, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a historic building. There was an article in the San Francisco Chronicle not long ago. And I go by it every time I go into, well, used to, when I was going into the city for meetings in that vicinity. But the building is still there. It still has the dirt floor. It's an historic building. It's surrounded by high rises. And they're trying to figure out what's going to happen to it. But the business is no longer operating.
Thank you, Julie.
Uh-huh. Who was I just talking to? Because the name on the screen is Mary.
Oh, I'm Mary's partner, Bruce Feld.
Okay. I was just trying to figure it out. There are a couple other numbers here I can't identify either.
I don't know if this camera works, but
that's okay. And our other person disappeared, so I'll have to ask somebody else. Anyway, thank you. I was going to ask Bob Hoyer, when you were working for the mining company, how much or any blacksmithing did they do?
They did, as far as I know, they didn't do any blacksmithing.
Okay.
They
I
had
didn't know
quite
if
a
they had to
machine
create
shop.
some of their own parts or anything.
They had quite a machine shop. And they made their own parts, but I don't remember seeing blacksmith.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have a machine shop, you don't need a smith.
Right.
All right, that takes care of that.
Makes sense. All right, and the machinery
Yeah.
taking over the smithing.
That's
All
right.
right. Any other questions for Brian?
Thank you, Brian.
My pleasure.
Brian.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you so very much, Brian. We are so thrilled that we were able to capture your passion around blacksmithing.
Yeah.
The reason we
Very
shot
nice.
the
Very
video in 3 separate parts is we will be publishing these videos on the Clayton Historical Society YouTube channel, as well as finding ways to weave the videos into the physical collections and exhibits at our museum building itself. So be on the
Sweet.
lookout for those moving forward.
Sweet. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah, Ted, and I would also like to thank other persons who are involved in this video. Shannon Seven was kind of our group coordinator, as well as Debbie Eistetter, who wrote the original article that inspired all of this. And Renee Wing also did some, being the curator, knew where the historic photos were to look at in the museum. And again, AJ Shapiro, who put all of this together and kind of ultimately putting together the vision that I had of these videos. So thank you to everyone who was involved in this. It really was a good team effort, and I appreciate everyone's efforts.
Yeah, AJ was terrific.
Yes, thank you. I was super impressed with the committee. I mean, this was an idea, what, 2 months or less ago, as far as how can we provide content in a virtual format for our membership meeting. So, wow, what a conversion there of talents. And thank you so much again for these treasures that we'll be able to put in the museum for the years to come.
And we're very lucky that Brian moved into the area and stopped in at the museum one day.
Is that how we connected with him?
Yes, I think you were at China Camp, right? Before?
Angels Camp.
Angels Camp, yes.
And I heard about you folks and I said, you're irresistible.
Yes, and we were so lucky that day he came in.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, folks. Well, we are closing out the evening tonight. I do want to do the last call for the silent auction. How is that looking right now in the chat window?
It's looking good, everyone. Dorothy Bratt put in a bid for $250. So that's where we're holding. So this will be the last call. If anybody wants to go above $250 for this wonderful folding traveling bike, have at it.
All right, so we'll give people maybe 60 more seconds to think and talk amongst yourself. If for some reason you're looking for holiday gifts this season, I do want to remind folks we do have an online gift shop of items. This is available on our website, claytonhistory.org. Just look for the gift shop button at the top of the page. And if you live within a reasonable distance of the museum, I'd say maybe 10 or so miles, we do have volunteers that would gladly deliver these gifts to your front door, understanding the notion of COVID-19 and social distancing. And I would call out a couple of items here featured. We did recently publish a new book called A Walk Through Historic Clayton, the Expanded Edition, which was a production that Dick Ellis and I and others worked on. And it's essentially an expansion of our downtown walking tour with photos of then and now that compares what's on the property today versus what was there yesterday. We also have our Clayton Museum ornaments that are still available if you want one of those to decorate your tree. And look out for an email that will be sent out in the next couple of days. We're also doing our train raffle or drawing this year. So this is a what, B&O sized scale, Steve?
It's an HO scale model train layout or set that includes the locomotive, the rail cars, and the track and the power pack. It's DC powered. And this was purchased at a great discount from our friends over at Just Trains, model train store in Concord. They've got a website, so please check them out and support them, and also support our train raffle.
That's great. And we have all of our usual gifts as far as Clayton branded t-shirts and blankets and other unique items as well. So be sure to check that out. All right, so let's close up the raffle here. Steve, would you like to announce the winner?
And drum roll, please. Dorothy Bratt is the winner at $250. Thank you so much, Dorothy.
Woohoo!
Congratulations.
And thank you, Nancy Niemeyer, for donating the bicycle.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Nancy, for a wonderful gift. And Dorothy, we'll be in touch with you as far as how we can either drop that bike off or you can pick it up. So we'll be in touch here shortly. So as we close our first online membership meeting, I really hope that you had a wonderful time this evening. I certainly did, as we had an opportunity to hear about what's been going on at the Museum and Historical Society this past year, recognize some great men here in the community that have served us so well over the years, and also now learning about blacksmithing in Clayton. I did want to thank all of my board. I have such a phenomenal board at the museum right now that do such great work to preserve and promote the Clayton history, which is the mission of our organization. So thank you very much. I also want to give a shout out to Shannon Seven, who led our event tonight as our membership chair. So thank you for project managing us and whipping us along and making sure we're staying on track so that we could curate the experience we all enjoyed this evening. And then as Steve mentioned, thank you so much to Steve himself, as well as Debbie Eistetter, Renee Ring. We also had, of course, Brian Connery joining us for the blacksmithing video content. And then, of course, to AJ Chipero, who was not able to join us this evening, but what an incredible talent he has as far as curating the video production. So thank you to AJ. And a quick shout out, of course, to Steve Pierce, who is the current president, I think, still of the CBCA. We're leveraging the CBCA's Zoom account tonight. So thank you for that. Thank you for the technical support. And be on the lookout as we move into the new year for the members of the call for our renewal letters and everything good to come in 2021. So with that, we'll call it a wrap. Happy holidays. Enjoy Thanksgiving in 2 weeks. We'll certainly leave the bridge open if anyone wants to say anything else or hang out for a bit. But thank you again so much for coming.
Thank y'all.
Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, everyone. Good meeting.
I see Dawn Arundel's name there. Does that mean Peggy actually figured out how to use the computer?
I think her son is usually with her when she pops in.
Ah, wonderful. Can she say hi? We'd love to hear your voice, Peggy, if you can unmute.
I'm going to ask her to unmute. Let's see if she does it.
If she's on a phone, it's
There she is.
She's
There. Hi,
Hi.
Hi, Peggy.
good to hear everybody.
Did you
Yes.
enjoy that program, Peggy?
Sure did, yes.
That was great. Gosh, it's good to hear your voice. We've missed you.
Well, the way it goes. When you
Are you here in Clayton? Or are you with your kids?
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, good. Oh,
Yeah,
good.
don't get down for the day, for the weekend.
That's awesome.
Fill it up,
That's
Bill.
awesome.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's neat.
That's great. Well, it's good to hear from you.
Proclamation. About the size of that picture there. It'll hang in the museum or something.
All right, Steve. Well, if you want to stop the recording, we can do that.
Thanks all. Good night.
Good night.